Hi, and welcome to Undressed with Edwina Clare. I'm your host, Edwina Clare, and this podcast aims to empower women through honest chats. This platform is a safe space for all, and we'll be sharing our unpopular opinions and raw feelings about fashion, sex, motherhood, and more. All right, let's get undressed. Today is episode 1, and to be completely honest, I am so nervous to do this, but I really wanted to give it a red hot crack. So, a little bit about me. I am a fashion and business student. I've had to defer because I've had my second baby, and who is 11 weeks old. We'll be talking about sustainable fashion. This topic is really important to me. I'm a fashion design student, and it's one of those things we learn a lot about, and then when we go into the industry, or if I'm trying to build my brand at the moment, and trying to actually build a sustainable brand is really difficult. If you want to be sustainable in all aspects, or in most aspects, or as much as you can, it's actually really hard to do. And even things like going to fabric suppliers that say that they're green, but not everything's green, and it's just sort of a very grey area. And there have been a few times where I've thought to myself, does the world really need another fashion brand? Like, do people really want to buy what I'm selling? Like, it is a little bit conflicting, but I really love fashion, and I've always wanted to launch a brand, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just going to do it the best way I possibly can. The topic for today is sustainable fashion, and talking about what we can do about it. The climate at the moment, like the economic climate at the moment, means that there isn't a whole lot of spending going on. People are struggling financially. Interest rates are through the roof. I don't know a whole lot about the economy, but that's not what we're here talking about today. What I am going to discuss today is how you can buy sustainably or be sustainable in your fashion choices, and generally how to make sustainable fashion practices less daunting, and what we can really do to help save the planet and be more eco-friendly and all those sort of great things. Okay, enough rambles. I thought it would be really cool if I did like a little update, like a little life update. I've listened to some podcasts that do it, so I'm stealing their ideas. Basically just think it's really cool because I am currently in therapy. I've done 5 therapy sessions and I'm feeling so good for it. So this week we talked a little bit about ADHD. Well, no, last week I introduced the fact that I was, as a kid, diagnosed with ADHD, and then told that I'd grown out of it, which my therapist basically said, oh, I don't believe that's true. But she gave me this like a questionnaire sort of situation, and I had to, circle if it was for me, if it was one of my symptoms, I guess. And I came back with a very strong score. So she's like, look, I think you might have ADHD. She basically said, just take your diagnosis that you got as a kid. But then I also found a whole lot of paperwork from when I was going to like the developmental clinic as a kid. It's all very in-depth and a bit crazy, but I'll go into it in another podcast if you want to hear all about my crazy brain. So it was really interesting talking to her about that this week. And basically I'm just wrapping up maternity leave in a couple of weeks. So I've been getting used to the idea of my little bambino going to school, or going to childcare, I mean. But she'll have her big brother there to look after her. So I'm sure it'll be fine. Oh, there she is. Into the topic of today. I thought I'd just start with the definition of sustainable fashion. Sustainable fashion refers to clothing that is designed, manufactured, distributed, and used in ways that are environmentally friendly. That came from Green Dreamer. And then the Good Trade defines ethical fashion as garment design, production, and distribution that focuses on reducing harm to people and the planet. So look, they are very similar. Sustainable, ethical. It's a very similar definition. I feel like ethical sort of leans more towards the like human rights and that sort of thing. I will be talking about sustainable fashion sort of more from a eco-friendly point of view. Ethical fashion, I'm not saying although I'm not talking about it necessarily today, I'm not saying that it's not important. It is extremely important, but I feel like it's such a broad topic, we should just narrow it down today and just make it sustainable. I will talk about ethical fashion in a later podcast. So, a couple of statistics for you just to really shock the system. 2.1 billion tonnes of CO2 emissions are produced by the fashion industry alone each year. I don't really understand how the whole carbon emissions thing works. I know that it's bad. I realize that it is the main contributor to warming up the planet, and obviously we all know the effects of that in Victoria, and we've had the horrible bushfires, we've had the floods, we've had like global warming is literally on our doorstep now. So 2.1 billion tonnes of CO2 emissions sounds really scary to me. Another thing is 35% of microplastics come from synthetic clothing. So if you don't know what a microplastic is, it's basically like a teeny tiny microscopic plastic that in synthetic clothing, like your, say, your leggings, they're in the wash. Microplastics come out of your leggings while they're being washed, and they go down the drain into the ocean. The fish eat the microplastics thinking that they're food, then we eat the fish, and then it's just like a horrible cycle and we're all eating plastic. So 93% of brands don't pay their workers a living wage, which is just a disgusting statistic. So that I found those, 3 facts incredibly confronting, especially as someone who buys fast fashion. I do buy fast fashion. The reason I'm doing this podcast is because I feel like a hypocrite, because saying sustainable fashion is really important to me, and re-wearing and not greenwashing and all that sort of stuff, it's really important to me. But I have to buy fast fashion because financially I can't afford to buy really sustainable and well-made clothing, because the price point is just that much higher. So what I will be talking about today are a couple of things that I personally do and a couple of things I don't personally do but will be implementing in my life that sort of make unsustainable clothing a little bit more sustainable, and how we can work around the whole fast fashion thing while caring about the planet. So I've got some dot points. I'm going to talk about it. So my first point is buy less. All you have to do is actually consume less clothing per year. According to the Guardian newspaper, Australians buy 14.8 kilos of clothing on average per year, which is so many pieces of clothing. It's huge. We don't need that much. We really don't need to be consuming that much new clothing, because it's a lot. We are paying an average of $6.50 per garment as well, which for anyone who's ever sewn anything in their life knows that you can't make a piece of clothing for $6.50, let alone pay someone else to do it. We have a huge obsession with staying on trend. The fashion industry talks about 52 seasons in a year, which to keep up to date with 52 seasons in a year, you have to buy at least one piece of clothing per week. It's ridiculous. We need to care less about trends, and we need to care more about style. Like, I think styling the clothes that are already in your wardrobe differently to stay, in quotation marks, on trend, I don't think is that difficult. So my next point is borrow, swap, sell. So instead of buying a new dress every time you've got an event, borrow a friend's, hire one. I did a really quick search on Google, and I literally just wrote clothing hire, and 10 different places came up in Melbourne. It's not hard to swap. Like, I mean, if you take the monetary, like, money out of it, and you just did like a direct trade with someone, I don't know. I've never done that before, but that could work. And instead of hoarding clothes that you'll never wear, sell them. This gives someone else the opportunity to wear them and will reduce the demand on new products. I am so guilty of this. I have jeans that are perfectly fine, that still have the tags on them, that live in the back of my wardrobe, and I just don't look at them. There are dresses that I bought to go out in, and I never wore them. I used to just there is so much stuff in the back of my wardrobe that I don't even wear, that hasn't seen the light of day in 3 or 4 years. I mean, given there has been COVID, so maybe the dresses that I bought for occasions, the occasions just didn't happen. But now it's time to get rid of them. I'm not a size 6 anymore. I've had 2 kids. There are clothes that I have that have followed me around for 3 years that will never fit me again. And I mean, I understand getting rid of clothing that you love or that you think is beautiful, although maybe one day I'll fit into it again. It's really hard to let go of, but while it sits there and does nothing, the demand for clothing increases. A couple of apps that I've used personally to sell clothing in the past are Carousel. I've also put things on Marketplace, I think. And I have the Poshmark app. I don't think I've ever used it. Maybe I've used it to buy something. But just sell things. Put your clothes up on one of those apps and get rid of the stuff that has not seen the light of day in 3 years. Like, I'm telling myself this as much as I'm telling you this. The next point I have is to buy secondhand, like on Poshmark, like on Carousel, like on Marketplace. But gone are the days where op shopping was thought of as yuck. I remember being so embarrassed to go into an op shop when I was a kid. But then I moved out of home and I used to have a friend and we'd go op shop hopping. So we'd go to the 4 that were on the main drag and see what there was to see. You don't pass things by just because they might need a little bit of a love. Like, maybe their dress is too long and maybe the buttonhole's ripped. Just take it home and fix it. Like, it's cheap anyway because it's at an op shop. So just maybe, don't shy away to clothes that maybe need a little bit of a love. Secondhand shopping is, I mean, if you don't want to spend your weekend going to every Salvo's, Vinnie's and posh op shop that is known to man, I did a quick Google search and I found online op shops, which I knew existed, but I hadn't actually ever done anything about it. So The Closet is a place, I'll pop that in the show notes, as well as Reluv, that's RELUV. Both I found very quickly on a Google search, and they sell secondhand clothing, and it all looks really good. Like, I love, I'm going to jump back on it this afternoon and have a look at what I can see. Just back on the microplastic thing, another really great way to reduce your footprint on the planet is to wash your clothes less. I'm not saying never wash your jeans. I'm not saying put them in the freezer, because I don't know if that actually works. Tell me if it does. I'm not saying that, never wash your clothes, because gross. Wash your clothes, especially your activewear and your undies. But trust me, your clothes will hold their colour better, they'll last longer, and you'll save money on water and electricity. So it's so good for those, that inflation. But yeah, to save on microplastics being washed down the drain, just wash everything a little bit less. It doesn't need to be washed everywhere. You can get away with a couple of days. So, to what I was saying earlier about not necessarily being able to afford sustainable clothing, but being passionate about sustainable clothing, how I try to not get around it. Get around it sounds like I'm trying to avoid a very serious problem. What the reality is, I have to wear clothing. That is the reality, but I have to wear clothing, and I also have 2 kids to feed. So I know it's really great to buy sustainably and to buy ethically, and to know where to know where your clothes came from. Absolutely, I am all about that. I think it's really important to know that the cotton you're wearing is GOTS certified. I think that's really important. But the reality of it is, buying fast fashion jeans, buying my jeans from wherever I buy my jeans from, like Dotty or whatever, or buying ethical jeans can be the difference between a couple of $100. And what I'm saying is that if the financials don't add up to a sustainable fashion budget, you can absolutely buy fast fashion, but just make sure that the jeans fit you really well, that they are a color that you'll wear all the time, that they just become an absolute staple, an absolute basic, that you're going to wear them for a couple of years. So the way I try my absolute hardest, I try my absolute hardest to do this is, so for basics, for things that I wear, often every day, I just bought a black singlet and a white singlet from Kmart. And yes, they were very cheap, but they will last me. I will wear them until they start falling apart, and then I'll mend them and wear them for longer. My jeans are from Dotty, but I know I bought 2 pairs of jeans because I absolutely had to. And I've got 2 different fits. I've got them in a color that I know I'm going to wear, and I know is going to work for summer and winter. It's going to go with a lot of my tops. I'm going to be able to dress them up. My point is, I save my big spends for statement pieces, for pieces that I love, for pieces that I know I'm going to maybe not necessarily wear every day, but I am going to own that piece forever. So things that I do not skimp on are coats. Like, just make sure that your whole closet, sustainable or not, is completely versatile, and that you can like almost like a capsule wardrobe. That's a topic for another time. So also, if you're buying online, as lots of lots of fast fashion brands are online now, like your Boohoo and your Shein and all that sort of stuff. If you're buying online and it doesn't fit you, or it doesn't look good, or the color washes you out, or for whatever reason it's never going to be worn, just return it immediately. I have only done this once. I have only returned immediately once, and it was the best thing ever, because I got my money back and everything. But the jeans didn't fit, it was the jeans. The jeans didn't fit. So I went on and just I returned it immediately. And now those jeans are not sitting in the back of my wardrobe with the tag still on them. never going to be worn because they don't fit. They just don't fit. And I am not changing my body to fit an item of clothing that is ridiculous. Return it immediately, because the item of clothing is better off going back to the company where it can be bought by someone else. So it's actually being utilized. Okay, my last point is to dispose of your clothing responsibly. 10 kilos of clothing goes into landfill per person every year. That's 10 kilos of the 14.6 or 14.8 kilos that we were buying, which is ridiculous, because we're actually gaining 4 kilos of clothing it doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this? Also, don't put your clothing in the bin. It feels so weird. I have thrown clothing out, and I have, especially when it comes to undies, I just throw them out. That's my daughter having a bottle, so it's weird. I don't know if you can hear it. So it's very easy to say, just don't throw them out. What are we going to do instead of throwing them away? Many places take old clothing, including H&M has those bins. Apparel, which is a textile recovery and recycling company, they will take your old clothes. I think you have to pay for postage. They take all your clothes and then recycle them, which I think is really cool. So I will be utilizing that. And so, as I said before, I always throw out my undies. So, but I did have a little look online, and obviously you don't donate your undies and socks. That's never going to happen. You don't give those to Vinnies. So I did a bit of research, and there's a company that actually takes your undies and gets the fibers from them and makes new undies, I guess. And it's called Underwear for Humanity. So that's pretty cool, and that could be a really great place just to reduce your textile waste. So I hope this podcast has given you some ideas about what you can do to be a bit more sustainable in your fashion choices. And if you've got any feedback, let me know. Until next time. Thanks. Bye.